Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another special edition of the Yak with Mac. I can't wait to introduce my special guest this week. And trust me, you are about to be inspired. But first, leaders, this is a place to be. This is a place where we want you to come to get inspired, to get encouraged so that you could be better influencers because that's what it's all about in 2021, right? You've got to influence your people. The time is long past where you can just tell people what to do. You've got to influence them and be a positive influence on them. Here's the other thing, leader ready. There's tons of classes all over the place. Let's fill them up. Whether you're in core, whether you are in Metro, whether you are in TPR, let's fill those leader ready classes up. And if you're in any channel, remember my friend Desmond Cribbs, his team handles leadership for the rest of the country. So make sure you are taking those courses in Cornerstone, that you are constantly developing yourself. My last reminder, 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day. I'm going to ask this man in a little while what he does to develop himself every single day. 15 minutes a day is all we're looking for. Something. Hopefully you take that 15 minutes to watch this. Hopefully you are reading a book, an article, listening to another podcast, but something that's going to continue to develop your leadership skills. Okay, I can't wait to get to my special guest. I have the gentleman who is the co-chair of the Black Empowerment Network. His exact title is he's the manager of software engineering, and the team he works on is a network capacity software solutions. We're going to find out all about that. But I think the Black Empowerment Network, based on what he does, is probably like his side hustle. So I don't know how he.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Calvin Mayfield. Calvin, oh man,
Hey, what's going on, people?
It is so great to connect with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Man, happy to be here. Happy to be here. It's a blessing.
Absolutely. Well, Calvin, hey, let's start here. I'm anxious to hear about your career journey, and then I'm really anxious to hear about what you and your team does. And then we'll get into some other leadership stuff. So walk us through your career journey.
Oh man, thank you for the opportunity. So, I graduated college in 1992. I did some Big Six. It was six of them at the time. Big Six consulting for a little while. I was with Anderson Consulting for about 4.5 years. Then I was a contractor for 2 years after that. And then in October of '98, I took my initial position at Sprint as a data analyst. And my career journey has just gone on from there. I've spent most of my time in IT, doing a variety of roles. Like I said, I started off as a data analyst, then I moved on to be a project manager, worked in enterprise architecture for a minute, requirements management and business solutions. And then I started working in infrastructure deployment. So managing the work that goes around server installations, firewall deployments, things that nature. And that grew into being a lead in Sprint's digital area, specializing in mobile applications. And then I did leave for about 5 months. I thought the grass would be greener somewhere else. I found out it wasn't. It was all dry and nasty, and I decided to come back. And I came back into a role in what Sprint called OSS, which is basically the operational support systems that support the network. And so doing things where we analyzed device performance and how devices interacted with the radio network and how the radio network interacted with the core network. So that's what I was doing at the time of the merger. And so now I'm not so much in OSS anymore. I've actually transitioned since joining T-Mobile to enterprise or engineering insights and analytics. And so what we do is we take in all the data that's generated by the network and we provide valuable solutions to different parts of the organization, whether that's legal or fraud or the network organizations, just sifting through all that data and trying to find actionable insights so that we can be famous for network and be number one.
Wow. My gosh, that is unbelievable. Calvin, what an important role that you have. I mean, we couldn't do anything without you and your team. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, the network is the product, right? And there's a lot of us that do it. I've got 4 peers right, that are looking at different aspects of the network and providing those insights. But yeah, it's important, when somebody calls into care and they say, I drop here on this highway at this mile marker every time. I'm going to leave you guys if you can't fix that. Those things tend to come to us. What's happening here? What can we do to move the needle so we can save this customer, right, and avoid that churn? Those are the kind of things that come to us that we try to address.
So important. Wow. That is awesome, man. Thank you so much for walking us through that. And so I'm going to come a little bit back to that because I got you on here for a couple of reasons. I'm really aware of the work that you do in leadership in the Black Empowerment Network, but also the leadership that you do on your team. I want to come back to that in a second, and
Okay.
I want to really set that up on how that's going to inspire a lot of folks that's going to watch. Let's still talk for a few minutes about the Black Empowerment Network. How
So
did
first we
your
gotta talk about this whole inspirational thing, man. You're setting me up for failure. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily inspiring, but I've been
you are
around for a long time, and hopefully there's a nugget or two of wisdom that can come out. But I
oh
don't
more
want you to
than
get people's hopes up. I don't want you to get people's hopes up.
that. And you're gonna laugh when you watch this. I'm telling you. Um, so how did your role evolve? Like, how did that come about? The Black Empowerment Network. I know that you were involved in the Diamond Network at Sprint, but
Right.
you've taken on such a great leadership role there. How did that all evolve?
So, like I said, I joined Sprint back in 1998. And in 2000, I got involved with Sprint's Diamond Network, which was our African American affinity group. And I've served in various capacities since 2000. And so it was kind of a natural progression of going through different roles and learning the organization, learning the different people that supported the organization, to getting into the role of president at the Diamond Network. I took that role on in September of 2016. And so I was in that role when the merger came through. And so wanting to embrace the new, but preserve the good parts of the old, it was decided that when we merged the two companies, that we would set up the ERGs in such a way that we had co-chairs, right? So you had somebody from the T-Mobile side that was young and energetic and had this vision of great things, and then somebody from Sprint where the ERGs had been around for a little longer, and so we had tools and processes and things in place, as well as some of this anecdotal knowledge about things that have worked in the past, things that didn't work, why they didn't, and so to marry that together, so we didn't lose our connection to the legacy things that we had while embracing the bright future that we had in front of us.
Yeah, it's been amazing and such an impact in a short period of time. I'm sure Simeon Booker is going to be ecstatic that you called him young and energetic.
Absolutely. He's got that personality. That's why he's out front so much. He's that guy. I'm more, for those who are old enough to remember the cartoon character Droopy, right? That's me, kind of, I'm happy, right? That's just kind of how I roll, right? So it's just great being with him and having him be the hype man, right? And be able to present these things in a engaging fashion and draw people in, right? Because that's what people want. I'm kind of like the chief operating officer, right? Or the wizard, right? The guy behind the curtain kind of pulling levers and making sure things go. That's where I'm comfortable. That's where I fit. So our styles kind of complement each other in that respect.
Yeah. Um, so how did the whole excellence in action, how did that come about? And what are a couple of things that you're looking forward to over these next few months with the Ben?
So excellence in action, was a lot of brainstorming, right, between not just us, but the leadership in DE&I, as well as reaching out to members of the ERG and just trying to get their feedback. But what we wanted to do was have a different conversation in Black History Month, right? Typically, it's Crispus Attucks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, slavery, the end, right? And we did not want to do that again. We wanted to focus on something different, right? And that being, we're here, we're excellent, and we're moving things. We're about making change and making progress. And I think that's one of the things that Simeon has talked about this, right? And I want to just reiterate this. It's not that we are more excellent than anyone else, but historically, right, we've been considered lazy, shiftless, no account, right? And this is just something that's reaffirming to us, right, that we are excellent. We do add value, just like other people, other groups add value, and we want to be recognized for that. And we've got the empirical evidence to show it, right? Look at these people doing great things, not only on the planet, but off the planet, right? With Victor Glover, being on this International Space Station, right? Those are the kinds of things we wanted to showcase and make sure that, people understand it's not just that we're the only ones that do excellent things, that we also do excellent things and contribute to the excellence that is T-Mobile, and we are helping propel this company forward.
That's so inspiring, and we feel it, and it's just been the events have been phenomenal, and just such pride, and not only, as you said, not only looking back at our past, but also looking forward, and just saying excellence in action, to me is inspiring, and that is just awesome. I love how you put that. Um, so the other reason why I wanted you on was because at this very moment, and that was one of the first things that you asked me when we talked a few weeks ago, was that, hey, Kenny, I don't have direct reports. And I said, but I know that you are a great leader anyway. And you went on to talk about some really specific things that you do outside of work that's contributed to your leadership, as well as some things that you do day in and day out with your team and with your peers. Talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you do outside of T-Mobile that has really contributed to you being just an outstanding leader.
Well, so, and just to correct one thing, if I said that I misspoke, I do have direct reports, but I think the point I was trying to make is that you don't have to have direct reports to be a leader.
Yeah.
Right. Being a leader has nothing to do with who you manage, right? Those are two very different things, being a leader and
Yes.
being a manager, right? Anybody
Absolutely.
can be a leader. And so, when I look at things outside of work, so, I've been a youth coach. I still am a leader in the Boy Scouts, right? And when I look at that, so for instance, before I even had a role in Boy Scouts, an official title besides just being an adult, member or what have you. Based on the experience that I gathered over time, going on various campouts, camping in all kinds of conditions and things of that nature, after about 4 or 5 years of doing that, I was recognized as a leader, somebody that new parents could come to and ask about packs and tents and how to prepare for, camping overnight in the winter and things of that nature. What's it like going on a 90-mile trek through the mountains of New Mexico, right? Because I had done those things, so people could come to me and get advice, and they felt comfortable doing so. All right, not that I had a title or any great position, but that I knew a thing or two, and they could come to me and get what they needed to be successful. Same thing with coaching youth sports, right? These kids are looking for you to teach them and to guide them, and even now, because of taking the time to participate with the children and interact with them and be a mentor to them. A lot of my kids, when I run into them, they still call me Coach Calvin, right? And I think that speaks to being a leader that they could relate to, right? Somebody they could continue to look up to as they grow up, and somebody that added value. So I look at those are the kinds of experiences that you look at kind of what resonates with people, whether it's in work or outside of work, and you want to add that to your toolbox and continue to leverage that to make you successful.
Oh, that is awesome. I love that. And so you can get those leadership lessons from anywhere. And it's great, right? You go to 7-Eleven and someone that's grown now is still calling you Coach Calvin. I love
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Talk about some of the things you do on your team. You talked about some real specific things when we spoke beforehand, and that just shows that you're a leader every single day. What are some specific things that you do daily that really drives that leadership in you?
The biggest thing now is touch points, right?
Mm.
Trying to reach out to people on the team so they don't feel alone, and so they know I'm thinking about them, right? I think that's one of the big things that I do now that I didn't really have to do when I was in the office. You just kind of walk down the aisles like, hey Calvin, hey Jack, that kind of thing. But you don't have that anymore, right? So trying to maintain a sense of community, a sense of connectedness is a big thing. And I like to think that there are three attributes. I call them the 3 C's that really contribute to being an effective leader, and that is your competence, and your consistency and your connections, right?
Wow.
And I try to demonstrate this to my team as well, right? Um, Leadership, again, right, is the way I look at it, right, is when you're a leader, people come to you for direction and you're able to guide them accurately. And to me, the foundation of that is competence, right? You have to know what you're doing, you know? The other thing is consistency. Um, People, especially children, right, can smell real quickly if you're being fake, if you're playing favorites, things that nature. So if you're going to be a jerk, be a consistent jerk, right? Be a jerk to everybody, right? If you're going to care about people, right, and ask about their families and things of that nature, again, do that with everybody. Be consistent. Being consistent also means showing up. No matter how good things are or how bad things are, you try to have a level head and try to present a consistent air of confidence, right? And sometimes that's hard to do. When things are crazy and things are on fire, it can be hard to do that. And people know you're human. It's okay to express some frustration and things, but you can't let it bog you down. You express it, explain to the team why, but then you also have to have a plan, right? This is how we're going to get past that. And then finally, in order to get things done in any organization, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's large or small, you've got to have connections. You've got to build relationships with people that you can leverage when things start to go sideways, right? So that way people come alongside you and help you get things accomplished. And so those are the things that, I look at, that I try to demonstrate, that I try to encourage with my team. You got to be competent. That's the first thing. You have to know what you're doing. And then you got to be consistent, and then build those connections, build those bridges, don't burn any bridges, and make sure you know who can help you and also who you can help, right? And that way you can get a lot done as a leader, even without the title, even without direct reports. If you have those three things, you're in a leadership position. You are a leader.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that was just so unbelievably awesome. And it's also things that everybody can do every single day. And
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
it really just takes you being aware, having that emotional intelligence and being really aware of yourself and aware of others. And I really love how you said when you were in the office with everyone, it was kind of easy. You'd see everybody.
Mhm.
Now it really just takes that extra effort, and you're doing that day in and day out. This is normally the part where I'll ask for your advice for new leaders, and you just gave it. But I'll ask it anyway. Is there any other pieces of advice that you would have for leaders that are starting out?
Get a mentor or multiple mentors. I think that's important, right? Leadership comes to very, very, very few people naturally, right? So um, look around, right? Look at people that are where you want to be and try to build those relationships. Also, look at people who treat you the way you want to be treated, who are in a leadership position, and try to emulate what they do. I've learned from every manager that I've had. I've learned the type of manager that I want to be and the type of manager I don't want to be, right?
Hmm.
So everything's a learning experience. I've had managers that rarely gave praise, but they were quick to chew you out, even in public, right? Throw you under the bus. Hated it, but that was a learning opportunity. It's like, okay, those are behaviors that I don't want to emulate. And so what I would do is I would find people to hold me accountable. It's like, hey, if you see me acting this way, let me know, right? Because I do not want to start developing that as a habit, right? Where there's other managers, right, that have always been encouraging, that, check in on you, make sure that you're not bored, right? Want to make sure you're challenged, want to make sure you're growing. It's like, yeah, I want to be like that person. So how do you get to, develop those traits? How do you develop those qualities? And so reach out to those people, learn from those people, learn from watching, learn from engaging, and add whatever they give you, whatever wisdom they give you, add that to your tool belt and exercise that, right? Just like any muscle or anything that you have to do, it becomes muscle memory. You have to exercise it, exercise it, exercise it to make it be a part of who you are. That's one of the big things. Get a mentor. I'll admit I'm not one to do the reading and the podcasts and things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
So that's not big for me. But talking to people, right, interacting with people, trying to understand what are the things that they do that make them successful. I'm really big into that.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Well, first, let me go back to the mentor thing. That was just outstanding advice, and but you were very specific. I think a lot of times I'll ask people, "Hey, do you have a mentor?" And they'll say, "Yeah." Well, does that person know that they're your mentor? And they're like, "I'm not really sure." So there hasn't really been anything formalized. But
Mhm.
you essentially was also saying that be pretty picky when it comes to choosing a mentor. Have it be somebody that you really want to emulate.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that we did at Sprint was we used to have mentoring circles, right?
Hmm.
Or what we didn't call them circles, we called them groups, right? Um, and where had a chance to sit down with executives, we had at the time when we were doing this, we had a few high up Black executives, and we would sit with them and try to understand, how they got to where they were. And there was always a theme, right? And that was be very deliberate in building your network, right? You're not just meeting people to meet people. It's great to have connections, right? I've got over 500 connections on LinkedIn, but right, if you're trying to get from point A to point B, who are the people that you need to interact with that can influence you getting there, right? So if position B is, in this organization, do you know anybody else in that organization? If so, build those relationships. Is there an opportunity for you to meet those other managers? Is there an opportunity for you to showcase your skills to the manager or director who would be hiring you into position B, right? So being very, very deliberate in how that works. And that's one of the things that I brought up circles before. It's one of the things that Ben is going to try to introduce here early in Q2, right? Is this concept of Ben circles, right? Where we have a cohort of mentees, about three that interact with a mentor, right? So you got a 3-to-1 ratio, and they can talk about how do you develop your leadership skills? How do you demonstrate the core competencies that T-Mobile has said this is what you need to do to be successful in your position, and the competencies we need to see you demonstrating for the next position, right? So having those types of conversations, and hopefully they're critical conversations, right? Where you can get down to the nitty gritty and understand, well, this is where you might be deficient, where you need to grow, right? You need to take some stretch assignments to either build this skill set or get this exposure, that kind of thing, if you want to grow your career, by going up the ranks. So those are the kinds of things that I look at. But again, I say the biggest thing is to have a reputation for being competent. Again, be consistent and to build those connections. And I would say if you have not done an exercise where you've tried to understand what your brand is, I think that's important. I think that's something a lot of people kind of take for
No
granted,
doubt.
that they know who they are, so everybody else sees them the same way. That is not necessarily the case. I did an exercise like that, probably 10, 12 years ago now, and it was eye-opening, right? The feedback I got was, a lot of things like, intelligent, hardworking. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's me. Then there were other things, right? Argumentative, difficult to work with, has his own agenda. And, I kind of had to take a step back. It was like, wow. So that's how people see me. So then I had a meeting with my manager. I was like, hey, this is the feedback that I got. This is my brand. Some of the stuff is great, but then other stuff is not very good. And he was like, okay, well, you've done the first part. Now you know what your current brand is. Now, what do we need to do to adjust your brand? And so we worked for like 18 months, and I did it again. And I'm still hard to work with. I think that's just who I am. But a lot of the other stuff, right, I had addressed. I was able to erase some of those negative perceptions over the course of 18 months of diligent focus, right, and making sure that I was aware of who I am and what I was doing, and to be able to change people's perceptions, right? So I would say if you haven't done a brand exercise, who are you to others? I would encourage folks to do that, and that includes people that don't like you. It's important that you understand how they see you, because you never know who they are in a position to influence for that job that you want to have. So,
Wow. And because we'll normally send stuff like that out to just, the
to
people that
people
we
that
know
like
love
you,
us. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that has no value whatsoever, right? That's how the
Right.
emperor ends up with no clothes. Right?
That's a great point. Listen, that is just phenomenal, phenomenal advice. And And so you were straightforward with us. You said that you wasn't inspiring. I got goosebumps, man. I am so inspired. I could talk to you all day. I really could. It's just such great advice. And so let me end with this. You mentioned this when we spoke together a few weeks back. You mentioned that you at times have the ability to really point your team. I think I'm saying it right, towards the North Star.
Right.
Tell us. Let's finish with this. Tell us a little bit about what you meant by that.
So, like I said, I've been in Boy Scouts for a while. You always have to set a direction, right? And following the North Star is an old term for making sure you know that you're going in the right direction or on the right path. And it's important that you express to your team, this is the direction we're going in, and this is why, right? Like I said, I don't read a lot of books just on leadership and management and stuff like that. It doesn't appeal to me, right? But I do love to read. And one of my favorite books was given to me by a mentor. It's The Last Stand of Fox Company, right? It's a book about the United States Marines during the Korean War. And MacArthur had told them to push deep into North Korea. So they did. So they're going into North Korea, and they get to a place called the Chosin Reservoir, right? And there's about 10,000 of them. At this point, North Korea reaches out to China, and the Chosin Reservoir is very close to the Chinese border. So you've got 10,000 U.S. Marines there, and China sends 100,000 Chinese soldiers down to come get them, right? So at this point, the Marines are stuck, right? They've got the Chinese coming down, surrounding them, and they have to make a strategic retreat to get out of that. Now, I want you to think about the situation that they're in, right?
Scary.
Enemies on all sides, right? And it's the dead of winter in North Korea. So not only are they fighting the Chinese, they're fighting the elements, their own fatigue, because you got to think, if I've got a 10-to-1 ratio against you, I can send my soldiers after you in waves so that you have to continually keep running to stay ahead. So they're battling the elements, they're battling fatigue, they're battling the Chinese, and they're looking for leadership, right? How do I get out of this situation, right? At that point, those leaders had to have very clear objectives and be able to communicate that clearly to their people. And that's where competence comes in, right? Where they're all their trust is in you at this point, right? You have to know how to get them out of there safely, right? And so those are the kinds of things I look to kind of inspire me as far as, okay, in that type of situation, right? What kind of leader do you have to be to get your people safely out of that? And you've got to have a North Star. You've got to have a direction that you're going in, right? Now, in their case, right, they literally had a place they had to get to. They had maps and compasses, and they knew they had to get to this place because it was a choke point, and they could hold off the Chinese until help came, right? So that's what you have to do as a leader many times is guide your team, find the North Star, find that choke point where you can hold off all the enemies and all the bad things until help can arrive. And I know that's kind of it's a drastic kind of scenario, but when you look at a situation like that, it demands leadership, right? Because literally life and death, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the books that and like I said, was kind of inspiring to me as far as what kind of leader you need to be. Another book that I've read, Good to Great. It was a profile of different companies that both kind of had the same inflection points in the same time. One went up, the other went down. What were the differences, right? And the key theme across all the successful companies was leadership, being able to see where you needed to go, being able to navigate the obstacles, to stand firm to who you are, what the goal is, despite the naysayers, and get there, right? And that was a common theme across all the successful companies, right? Focus on what you're good at, know where you're going, and do everything it takes to get there. So those are the kinds of things that, to me, go into having a North Star. You have a direction, you have a clear direction, and you can communicate it clearly so you can get people's buy-in to follow you, basically.
Wow. Calvin, I got to have you back on the podcast, sir. And I'm hoping that our first when we are able to do an in-person meeting, since a good part of my team has not seen the Overland Park campus, that's been suggested. And so hopefully I can do it in person with you because I've got to get more. I think we just scratched the surface on on just all of the things that you have to offer. And I can't thank you enough, man. This has been a lot of fun. You're both can make you laugh, but you also just are making me think about so many different things. I can't wait to put all this in the notes. So would you come back? Would especially if I come there?
Oh man, absolutely. I'd love
Okay.
to come out to the East Coast and hang out. I haven't been out
Yeah,
there in ages. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
I actually, I worked out there a couple of summers. So, Syracuse, is it Syracuse? I think so. Has a satellite campus in Piscataway, New Jersey, and
Okay. Yeah.
I worked out there a couple of years for Bell Communication Research. It's Telcordia now, and I love the East Coast. And so after the time I
Okay.
spent out there, I was like, oh yeah, this place is hype. Going to Philadelphia for the Greek Fest and all those kinds of things. I don't know if they still have it now. Like I said, I'm old, right? So this was the
Yeah.
'80s, right? But great times out there.
Great times. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, New York City beats Piscataway. No offense, beats Philly. No offense. So we'll get you here. That would be fantastic. Calvin,
Right.
thank you so much. Well, folks, if please listen to this, but please share it. Please share with all of our emerging leaders out there. This was so inspirational. I'm going to end it this way. This is Kenny and Calvin. This has been the Yak with Mac, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, everybody.